Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel where Cowboys Nation stays informed, passionate, and fired up every single day. If you bleed blue and silver, then you know that the offseason isn't just a time to relax, it's the calm before the storm. And right now, we're staring down the barrel of a potential roster shakeup that could have serious implications for how the Dallas Cowboys look heading into the 2025 NFL season. With training camp just around the corner and final roster decisions looming, the front office and coaching staff are reportedly mulling over some very tough choices. Two names are now front and center in the rumor mill: Donovan Wilson and Luke Schoonmaker. That's right, two players many fans assumed were locked into key roles may suddenly find themselves on the bubble. The Cowboys aren't just trimming the fat, they're potentially cutting into muscle, and fans are wondering what this means for the immediate and long-term direction of the team. Let's unpack all of this together, because the decisions made in the coming weeks could drastically alter the tone and success of the Cowboys' 2025 campaign. Donovan Wilson has long been one of those blue-collar players that Cowboys fans love: gritty, physical, and always around the football. He's been a tone-setter on the defensive side of the ball, a guy who lays the lumber and energizes the unit with his aggressive style. But despite all of that, whispers out of Frisco suggest that Wilson could be a surprise cut or trade candidate before the regular season kicks off. Why? Well, there are a few factors in play, and it starts with money. Wilson is due $8 million in 2025, which isn't outrageous for a starting caliber safety, but it becomes a much tougher pill to swallow when you factor in his injury history and the Cowboys' current cap situation. With the front office trying to maneuver around extensions for superstars like Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb, every dollar matters. And if there's even a small chance that the team believes Wilson is replaceable, they may feel compelled to act sooner rather than later. Adding to the tension is the fact that the Cowboys have quietly built depth at the safety position over the last couple of seasons. Malik Hooker and Jaron Kearse have both shown flashes of excellence, and younger players like Israel Mukumu and Markquese are rapidly developing. In fact, Bell in particular has impressed coaches with his versatility, range, and nose for the ball. He's been seeing increased reps with the first-team defense, and that's not just about giving guys rest, it's about evaluating potential replacements. There's a real possibility that the Cowboys feel they can get similar production out of Bell or Mukumu at a fraction of the cost. And if that's the case, Wilson's future in Dallas becomes murkier by the day. Letting go of a locker room leader isn't easy, but sometimes the business side of football trumps sentiment. And let's be honest, the Cowboys have made surprise decisions before. Just ask Dez Bryant, Jalen Smith, or Ezekiel Elliott. But this situation isn't just about cost cutting. There's also some concern that Wilson's play has started to decline slightly. Last season, his missed tackle rate ticked up, and he seemed a step slower in coverage. He's still a force in run support and an emotional leader, but the modern NFL demands safeties who can cover ground and match up with athletic tight ends and slot receivers. If the coaching staff believes Wilson has lost a bit of that explosiveness, it might accelerate their desire to move in a younger, cheaper direction. The team has emphasized speed and flexibility on defense under Dan Quinn, and although Quinn is no longer with the team, that philosophy hasn't vanished. The current regime is looking to build on the foundation he laid, and that means prioritizing traits like burst, coverage range, and matchup adaptability over purely physical tackling ability. Now let's pivot to the offensive side of the ball, where tight end Luke Schoonmaker finds himself in an equally precarious situation, albeit for different reasons. Drafted in the second round of the 2023 NFL Draft out of Michigan, Schoonmaker was supposed to be a critical part of the Cowboys' offense by now. Instead, 2 years into his NFL career, he has yet to truly carve out a role for himself. Injuries, inconsistency, and a general lack of chemistry with quarterback Dak Prescott have all contributed to a lackluster start to his career. And now, with Jake Ferguson emerging as the clear-cut T1, questions are swirling about whether Schoonmaker has a future in Dallas at all. Schoonmaker's biggest issue has been availability. The best ability, as the saying goes, is availability, and Schoonmaker just hasn't been on the field enough to prove himself. Even when healthy, he hasn't made the kind of splash plays you'd expect from a second-round investment. His blocking has been serviceable but not elite, and he hasn't shown the soft hands or route-running precision that separates good tight ends from great ones. In a league where tight ends are now expected to be dynamic threats in the passing game, Schoonmaker looks more like a traditional, old-school TE2, and that's not what the Cowboys need right now. Making matters more complicated is the fact that the Cowboys have started to experiment with different personnel groupings that minimize the need for multiple tight ends. With an emphasis on speed and spread concepts under new offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer, the team has been lining up with more 3 wide receiver sets and leaning on backs and wideouts in the passing game. That puts even more pressure on tight ends to contribute in a limited number of opportunities. If you're not a top-tier option like Ferguson, your chances to shine are slim, and Schoonmaker simply hasn't maximized his. Meanwhile, undrafted rookie Brevyn Spann-Ford and second-year man Peyton Hendershot are both making noise in off-season workouts. Spann-Ford, in particular, has turned heads with his athleticism and red zone ability. Coaches have praised his ability to separate in tight spaces, and if he continues this trajectory in training camp, he could leapfrog Schoonmaker on the depth chart. So where does that leave the Cowboys heading into what promises to be one of the most competitive training camps in recent memory? With several roster spots up for grabs and a deep pool of young talent, the team is clearly willing to make difficult decisions in the name of progress. Donovan Wilson may be a fan favorite, but sentiment doesn't win championships. And while Schoonmaker still has time to turn things around, the clock is undeniably ticking. The pressure is mounting, and performances in camp and preseason games will likely determine who stays and who goes. It's important to note that these moves, if they happen, are not just about 2025, they're about setting up the Cowboys for sustained success in the future. With major contracts on the horizon and a core of young stars to build around, the front office has to be ruthless in identifying value and maximizing every roster spot. This isn't just about trimming the bottom of the roster anymore. This is about taking a hard look at every position group and deciding whether each player is truly part of the solution. For Wilson, that means showing he still has the speed, instincts, and durability to lead the defense. For Schoonmaker, it means proving he's more than just a big body with potential. He has to show he can produce, and fast. Of course, none of this is set in stone. Training camp has a way of changing narratives quickly. A couple of big plays in practice, a strong showing in preseason games, or an injury to another player can swing the pendulum in a heartbeat. Wilson could still solidify his role as a veteran leader, and Schoonmaker could emerge as a valuable red zone target. But the margins are razor thin, and the competition is fierce. The Cowboys are no longer in a mode where loyalty or draft status guarantees security. Everyone has to earn their spot. Another element to watch closely is trade possibilities. If the Cowboys decide to move on from Wilson, they may look to flip him to a safety-needy team for a late-round pick or depth at another position. There are always contenders looking for tough, experienced defenders, especially as injuries pile up in training camp across the league. Schoonmaker, meanwhile, could also be part of a trade package either to a team looking to bolster their tight end room or as a sweetener in a deal for a veteran at another position of need, such as offensive line or linebacker. If the Cowboys are serious about shoring up weak spots, they'll have to get creative, and using depth players as trade chips is one way to do it. For fans, these decisions can be tough to swallow. Wilson has been a warrior, and Schoonmaker still represents untapped upside. But this is the NFL. Not for long. Roster turnover is a fact of life, and smart franchises know when to cut bait and when to double down. The Cowboys have a chance to reshape their roster in a way that balances youth, talent, and financial flexibility. If they make the right calls, they could position themselves for a deeper playoff push and possibly more. But if they hold on to the wrong pieces for too long, they risk wasting another year of elite talent from their cornerstone players. So as training camp inches closer and the rumors heat up, keep your eyes on the performances, the rotations, and the whispers coming out of team meetings. Donovan Wilson and Luke Schoonmaker are just two names among many that could be impacted by the coming roster shuffle, but they symbolize something bigger: the Cowboys' willingness to evolve, adapt, and make the hard choices necessary to chase greatness. And for a franchise that's been stuck in the almost tier for far too long, maybe shaking things up is exactly what they need.